I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So happy late Juneteenth to everybody. Hope y'all had a fantastic Juneteenth. Did you tell a black person happy Juneteenth? You know what I'm saying? Or when you saw a black person, did you just walk on by? Right. We got to get to that point where we treat one another kindly and show love to one another. But unfortunately, everybody was not so happy about Juneteenth, right? Everyone's not so happy to hear that it is or that there is something that black people pretty much alone are able to celebrate. And one of the individuals, which I'm going to be talking about today, who was not so happy about Juneteenth, okay, was a Missouri Republican politician. And her name is Valentina Gomez. Valentina Gomez, okay, she is running for election for Missouri Secretary of State, okay, and she is on the ballot in the Republican primary scheduled for August 6, 2024. And this woman recently, recorded a clip, which I believe she uploaded to her Twitter account initially, wherein she essentially says that black people should get out of America. And she also described Juneteenth as Ratchet. And we're going to get into this. And I'm going to share my screen here in a moment. We're going to talk about this clip. But the question that you have to ask yourself is, how can anyone so incapable of representing the needs of the people of Missouri be running for a political position? This actually makes Donald Trump look bad because here's the thing. A lot of black folks are actually quite conservative. In fact, I believe that the majority of black people are conservative. It is just that black people default to the Democrat Party because of the perceived anti-black racism that we perceive from other political parties, such as the Republican Party. So how could someone such as this sneak in? So uneducated, so uninformed. Could this be some level of Hispanic anti-black racism? We've seen this play before. We've seen it before where people have gone on social media, people from the Hispanic community, and said things like, if blacks start getting reparations, we should go out in the street and protest. When we know reparations is about justice. Reparations is about justice. So how can you be a politician and not concern yourself with justice? We know and we understand that a lot of black people in South and Central America are treated as second-class citizens. There was no civil rights movement for the black folks over there. In fact, a lot of the benefits that immigrants, which this woman is, I don't know if it's her or her, I think it's her parents who actually came from Colombia, immigrated. But a lot of the benefits that individuals who are migrants and immigrants, etc., get is due to the labor or due to the situations that black people, we ourselves found ourselves in throughout history. In other words, they're eating the fruit of our labor. Right? These are historical facts. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we're going to get into what this woman said.
Reparations from slavery and black victimization is about to be shoved down our throats for the most wretched holiday in America.
Here you go. So here's the thing, right? I don't think that it is appropriate to underestimate the foolishness that she's saying, even though it comes off completely ridiculous. We have to acknowledge the fact that there are people who have this viewpoint. Understand this. Reparations is not just about slavery. This is when I say she's uneducated, this is what I mean. Reparations is not just about slavery. So the argument that, oh, well, you were never enslaved, therefore you are somehow unworthy of reparations is folly. I'll give you a modern day example of people receiving reparations. And this is for people who are in the know. People who know what's going on, know what's going on. Let's talk about Chicago. The city of Evanston recently approved a slavery reparations program in 2019 and is currently paying out $25K plus some other benefits to certain individuals from this Chicago suburb. Now, for those of you who are unaware, this is basically telling people, and this is a program for people who lived or whose ancestors lived in the city between 1919 and 1969, prior to the passing of the Fair Housing Act. See, when we start getting into the history of the civil rights movement and you learn about Dr. King and the things that he fought and marched for and people was hosed down for, etc., this was due to racist policies and racist laws and practices that were in place in the 1960s. This is why this bill says from 1919 to 1969, because prior to this, you had all of these illegal processes and practices that would take place. Okay. So obviously people that was born and living in 1969, a lot of them are still alive to this day, have nothing to do with slavery. These people were not enslaved. Okay. But the reality is this. Reparations is something that is due to the fact that, okay, yes, we're talking about a 350-year event, which was slavery. We're talking about multi-generational slavery. We're talking about it being illegal for Black people to go to court and testify against people of other races, regardless of the crime that was committed, which opened the door for Black people, Black women, Black children, Black men, etc., to be separated from their families, raped, robbed, pillaged, to have their cities destroyed, to have laws, Black codes, Jim Crow, so on and so forth, to go on all the way until the 1960s. This is not just a 5 or 10-year event. This is a multi-generational event that happened over time. So to reduce to make it seem as if you might be for reparations if Black people today were enslaved is completely intellectually dishonest. That's not the reality, ma'am. And all it takes is you could take 15 minutes of Google search to understand the reason why Black folks today would be eligible for reparations. And the other nonsensical argument that I hear people saying is, well, people today are not responsible for what happened to your people, so why should we be taxed? These people got all these excuses. I wish they would just be honest. I wish they would have as much courage as this woman. I wish they would have as much courage as Valentina Gomez and just tell the truth about how they really feel about Black people. Because let's be honest, let's be transparent. Anti-Black racism is not a foreign concept in Latin America. And a lot of these people come from these countries with that same sentiment. Let's be honest. So I wish more of y'all would just do that instead of beating around the bush and looking for excuses to try to justify the evil mentality against Black folks that you already possess. I wish you would just be honest like her. Okay. But here's the thing. When we start talking about how this is going to get paid, let's look at the creativity of Black people, because this is what y'all have to understand. It was a Black woman, I forgot her name, who was mainly responsible for this reparations program in Chicago, a young woman at that, a beautiful young Black woman who played a major role in the outworking of this program. And look at this. Look at how they went about paying for funding this program. It says the program is funded through cannabis tax and a real estate transfer tax on properties worth more than $1 million when they're sold. See, so you see how things become creative, how we can get creative in ways to make sure that reparations are paid out in a way that is reasonable, right? And hits the right people the right way, if that makes sense, right? But we already know, and I'm telling y'all right here and now, that this not about, people are not tripping off of who gonna pay what reparations tax because they don't want to get taxed. That's not what it's about. Y'all being dishonest. Y'all just got an issue with reparations in general. So just say that. Don't try to come up with these little convenient talking points, acting like we can't get creative with the way that we go about taxing people for the reparations payments. Let's keep it 1,000. Let's keep it real. Let's be honest. Let's be honest, okay? So this is how they did it in Evanston. There was also examples in California. California has, a history of racism and land seizures. Okay. And they're talking about here in this little short article, the Ku Klux Klan in 1924, went to the city of Manhattan Beach to drive out a seaside resort for black guests owned by Walla and Charles Bruce. See, so this is a systematic system to basically try to keep black people oppressed. You ever heard of redlining? You ever heard of redlining? So again, when we start, people who don't understand the history of the Fair Housing Act and the necessity for it passing, right? The civil rights bills and different things of this sort and the necessity of them passing. See, this is why American history needs to be taught to its trueness. People need to make sure that you really teach the truth about American history and the origin of a lot of these little laws and these, these acts and these, these amendments and so forth to our Constitution. Tell the backstory so that people can understand the necessity for these things. Because again, as I said in my last video, when people don't understand the historical component or the historical context in which these discussions are happening, they always going to end up far left. And even though this woman would like to believe that she's Republican and, oh, she's right. Nah, ma'am, with your understanding and the way you speaking about black people and reparations, no, honey, you are far left, honey boo. Yeah, no, you are not on the right on this area. You are left. You went left. You gone. You out of there. Okay. And it's a crying shame that you would come from Colombia with this mentality. Shame. I'm not trying to be funny here, but shame on your mother. Shame on the people that raised you, ma'am, to come to America, to come here and talk about black Americans like this, when clearly you don't know the history of what you're talking about. Ma'am, I'm not, to be honest with you, you are a guest. You are a beneficiary of a guest who is a beneficiary of people who look like me and the sufferings that we went through. It was black people who fought for the civil rights movements and bills that got passed to open the door for your people to get here and come into America. And yes, as an American, I am proud to be an American. I am glad that I am able to, be a part of this great nation. And yes, I believe that black folks should pick themselves up by the bootstraps. But just because we can do that does not remove the obligation of this country to right the wrongs that they've done to black American people. It doesn't matter if what kind of money I got in the bank, if I'm rich or poor, got a job, don't got a job, got a business, don't got a business. That status has nothing to do with whether or not we should be eligible for reparations, because it's not about, picking yourself up by the bootstraps and how much money you got to determine if you're eligible for it. This is not about that. This is about justice. This is about righting the wrongs that have been done to our people in America. It's as simple as that. And I've given you multiple examples of why black folks today who have never gone through slavery should be eligible and would be eligible, should and would be eligible for reparations today. Because this is not a short-term event that lasted 10, 15 years, one generation, two generations. No, this is like a 430-year event that happened over the course of time. This is a debt that should be paid to black people today.
BLM raised millions. And what do they do for black lives?
You don't give a damn what they do for black lives. You only saying that to try to separate people from the movement. And I'm African American. I don't really care about Black Lives Matter. But you, ma'am, don't care about it. You only saying it because it's a political talking point. So this is disingenuous.
It's outrageous to see people asking for reparations, even though they never went into slavery.
Is it outrageous? You think that's more outrageous than what you're doing? What's more outrageous is what you are doing. See, and this is, as I said again, this is why I told y'all the history up front, because this is what ignorance looked like from a person speaking about something that you don't have no knowledge of. And look at her eyes, family. We got to be honest and diagnose what we really see in here. This is someone who is dealing with anti-black racist viewpoints. You have an issue with black people in general. And I'm glad you coming out of the closet or out of wherever you came from with this mentality, because now we as black people understand what's going on and we need to respond accordingly. Because at the end of the day, this is not about videos and memes and all this. This is about tweets, or excuse me, this is about actions, right? It's not about tweets. This is about power and actual action. See, because look, we understand today that racism is not directly holding anybody back from doing whatever they need to do in life, right? Like, not directly. There's some indirect, racism that may prevent certain people from getting in certain rooms and certain doors and prevent certain opportunities. Yes. But by and large, it's not impacting everyone like that on such a massive level that it had in the past, for example. Okay. But when we have individuals like this who can creep into political positions with this mentality, that is where the real threat today is. when someone like this can even be running for a political seat. We should be very concerned, okay? In other words, we need to get her out of there. She need to get out of there. There's no way that Republicans should have an issue with her and the things that she's saying. They should not take her serious. They should, because she's a bad representation, a bad look for the Republican Party. I myself, I believe, at least in 2022, or whenever the last election was, I was a registered Republican in the state of California, mind you. But this, to me, is way too much, too far. You're out of there. You're doing too much. And people who look like you should have told you that.
These are grateful people should be celebrated because they were one of the greatest nations to ever exist. Here's a tip.
Right. So we supposed to. So, ma'am, listen, before you come here to tell us what we need to do in the country of our beginning, of our genesis, in terms of what we know today, go back. Why don't you go talk to the people from where you are from and go enlighten them on what they need to do? You don't need to come here to tell us what we need to do. Because as I said earlier, we can be grateful to be Americans and still tell this government that you owe a debt that you have not paid. Our appreciation for being Americans and our success does not, and our ability to lift ourselves by the bootstraps does not remove the obligation this country has to right the wrongs that it's done. And this is a part of the reason why you well-to-do Black people, particularly Black men, need to be careful about how you separate yourself from the quote-unquote Black community. You understand? Because the way that y'all separate yourselves from the Black community and make it seem like, oh, well, those Blacks, those ghetto Blacks and this and that. And on top of that, you don't have any solution. So you're just pointing the finger, trying to separate yourself. And you individuals open the door for people like this to come in here and speak like this. This is disrespect. Even if you don't agree, even if you don't approve of reparations, you should be offended by the way this woman can just so freely speak about our people like this. This history is real. This is not a game. Straight up, that's what she said. If you don't like America, kindly get out. So because Black folks is telling this government that we should receive what is due to us, you equate that with us not liking this place or not wanting to be here? No, in reality, it is that you, Ms. Gomez, don't like us and you would prefer we leave. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. So it's just a crying shame that individuals like this could even have any place in our political arena whatsoever. Tells me our country's in very bad shape. Very bad shape. It's one thing to speak this way. If she was speaking this way and not in politics or just speaking this way and she had her own social media platform, it might be a different deal. But for her to just speak this way so freely and be looking for a political seat is quite concerning. So y'all see it firsthand. So listen, as I said, this is a moment where we as a community need to observe what we're seeing and come to some conclusions. Come up with a game plan to understand what we're up against. I think you would be hard pressed to even find a quote unquote white person to even speak like this. It is these, I don't want to label them tethers, but it is these people, these immigrants and their children who come from these places with these anti-Black sentiments who are the main ones pushing these narratives. Sometimes they look like us. Sometimes they don't. But we as Black people got to understand what we're seeing because it's coming from both the Republican and the Democratic side. Do not get it twisted. It's going to take creative solutions. I talked to y'all about the woman, the young lady from Evanston, from Chicago, from Illinois, who did her part, who put the work in to make sure that things happened in a respectable manner for the people there. That's what it takes, fam. That's what it's going to take. But again, for someone, again, to speak so freely like this, to describe Juneteenth as ratchet, that's disrespectful. Very disrespectful. And whether you stand for reparations or you don't, you should be, in some senses, outraged. You should feel some kind of way. And if you don't feel some kind of way about that, then, you know, come on, man. You might need to look in the mirror for real. So, hey, man, I just want to touch on this topic of discussion. I would love to hear your comments. Like, share, subscribe, fam. Comment below. Tell me what you think. Till we chat again, I'm out.